Good morning, everyone. Today, we're going to report about Frisbee and chasing games. But first, we're going to report the Frisbee, its history, equipment, mechanics, terminologies, and lastly, the basic skills. I'm Hani Jinpi Tanawan. Now I'm going to report the history of the Frisbee. On January 23, 1957, machines at the Wham-O Toy Company rolled out the first batch of their aerodynamic plastic disc, now known to millions of fans all over the world as Frisbees. 1871, the story of the Frisbee began in Bridgeport, Connecticut, where William Frisbee opened the Frisbee Pie Company. Students from nearby universities would throw the empty pie tins to each other, yelling "Frisbee" as they let go. In 1948, Walter Frederick Morrison and his partner Warren Franchoni invented a plastic version of the disc called the flying saucer that could fly further and more accurately than the tin pie plates. In 1955, after splitting with Franchini and Morrison, made an improved model and sold it to the new toy company Wham-O as the Pluto Platter, an attempt to cash in on the public craze over space. In 1958, a year after the toy's first release, Wham-O, the company behind such top sellers as the Hula Hoop, the Super Ball, and the Water Wiggle, changed its name to the Frisbee Disc, misspelling the name of the historic pie company. In December 1967, a company designer, Ed Heydrich, patented the design for the modern Frisbee, adding a band of ridges on the disc surface, called the rings to stabilize flight, by aggressively marketing Frisbee playing as a new sport. By 1977, Wham-O sold over 100 million units of its famous toy. In 1967, high school students in Maplewood, New Jersey, invented Ultimate Frisbee, a cross between football, soccer, and basketball. In 1970s, Heydrich himself invented Frisbee golf, in which discs are tossed into metal baskets. There are now hundreds of courses in the US with millions of devotees. There is also freestyle frisbee with choreographed routines set to music and multiple discs in play, and various frisbee competitions for both humans and dogs. The best natural frisbee players. Today, at least 60 manufacturers reproduce the flying disc, generally made out of the plastic and measuring roughly 20 to 25 centimeters, 8 to 10 inches in diameter with a curved lip. The official Frisbee is owned by Mattel toy manufacturers, who bought the toy from Wham-O in 1994.
These are the equipment used in Ultimate Frisbee, discs and frisbees. The shape of the disc is an airfoil in cross-section, which allows it to fly by reducing the drag and increasing lift as it moves through the air, compared to a flat plate. Cleats are essential for being able to run properly on the field and give you great ground support. Shirts. It's suggested not to wear cotton shirts, but to wear breathable and light shirts when playing Ultimate Frisbee. Shorts should be flexible, lightweight, and breathable, but tight enough so that they do not get caught on your legs while you run. Leggings should be comfortable and athletic, but not too tight, so that you have steady circulation in your legs. Gloves. They are used to provide an extra grip, especially in wet or cold weather. Disc clips. This is a clip that attaches to the outside of a bag so that you can clip it to the rim of the disc. Cones, necessary to set up the dimension of the field so that the players can see where the end zone and the sidelines are. Pads or braces, recommended to protect players.
Ultimate is a non-contact, self-referred team sport played with a flying disc frisbee. Players need to possess a degree of speed, stamina, and agility to play to a good level. The main objective of Ultimate Frisbee is to catch the disc in the end zone by passing the disc to progress up the pitch. But we have here the 10 mechanics of Ultimate Frisbee that a player should consider. First is the field. A rectangular shape with end zone at each end. A regulation field is 64 meters by 37 meters with end zones 18 meters deep. Cones are generally used to mark the corners of the end zones. Second, starting play. Each point begins with both teams lining up on the front of their respective end zone. The defense pulls the disc to the offense. A regulation game has 7 players per team. Third, scoring. Each time the offense completes a pass into the defense end zone, the offense scores a point. The first team to 17 goals wins with a time cap of 100 minutes, but this is often adopted at beginner levels of the sport. Fourth, movement of the disc. The disc may be advanced in any direction by completing a pass to a teammate. Players can't run with the disc, similar to netball. The person with disc, or called as thrower, has 10 seconds to throw the disc. The defender guarding the thrower or the marker counts out the stall count. Fifth, change of possession. When a pass is not completed, example, out of bounds, drop, block, interception, the defense immediately takes possession of the disc and becomes the offense. Sixth, substitutions. Players not in the game may replace players in the game after score and during an injury timeout. Seventh, non-contact. No physical contact is allowed between players. Picks and screens are also prohibited. A foul occurs when contact is made. 8. Fouls. When a player initiates contact on another player, a foul occurs. When a foul disrupts possession, the play resumes the play resumes as if the possession was retained. If the player committing the foul disagrees with the foul call, the play is redone. 9th, self-refereeing. Players are responsible for their own foul and line calls. Players resolve their own disputes. And last, number 10, spirit of the game. Ultimate relies upon the spirit of the game that places the responsibility for fair play on every player. There are no referees. Competitive play is encouraged, but never at the expense of respect between players, adherence to the rules, and the basic joy of play. That's the mechanics of Ultimate Frisbee.
Terms usually used in Ultimate Frisbee. Air bounce, a backhand or forehand throw that is aimed slightly downward, but then buoyed up by a cushion of air. Bid, an impressive but usually failing attempt at diving to catch the frisbee. Blade, an extreme version of the reverse curve, a forehand throw for right-handers that goes high in the air and curves left. Clag, to prevent good cuts by standing in the way of your teammates. Corkscrew, like a hammer throw, but the frisbee is held in a backhand grip rather than a forehand grip. Hack, a foul. Hammer, an overhead throw with a forehand grip in which the frisbee is released at an angle so that it flattens out and flies upside down. Hack, a long throw equivalent to a bump in football. Swill, what a bad throw is called. Pull, the throw that begins the possession, much like a kick-off in football. Reverse curve, a backhand throw to the left that curves right for right-handers, or a forehand throw for right-handers to the right that curves left. Scuba, a fast, difficult to intercept throw. Similar to a hammer, a scuba is held overhead, but with a backhand grip.
I'm Hanijin Pitanawa, and now I'm going to report the basic skills of Ultimate Frisbee. First basic skill, throwing. In throwing, there are two kinds, namely the backhand and forehand throwing. Backhand throwing is one of the most common throws utilized. Grip the disc like this, and like this for more power. Begin by throwing the disc using only the wrist. Don't use your arm yet. Just make the disc spin as fast as you can by flicking your wrist. Stand sideways to the direction you want to throw. Bring the arm around quickly. When your arm is pointing at your target, let go of the disc by flicking the wrist with power. Forehand throwing is also known as a flick. The forehand is another commonly used throw in Ultimate Frisbee. This throw is done seemingly effortlessly and swiftly. There are two main ways to grip, depending on type of disc you are using. The aerobie super disc is really easy to throw a forehand, so we'll look at this first. Grip like this with the super disc. The thumb is on top and the first two fingers are placed on the disc. The little finger is pressed on the outside of the rim. If you are using a disc with a traditional rim, press the middle finger against the rim, the thumb on top. Curving the flight. You can make the disc curve from the right to the left or from the left to the right. The main thing to do is to release the disc on an angle, right to left. By throwing the disc like this, it will curve from the right to the left. This is called adding skip curve, left to right. By throwing the disc like this, it will curve from the left to the right. This is called adding roll curve, and most people find this a little more difficult to master. Next, air bounce. You can make the disc glide through the air more smoothly and with more power, even make it fly down and then rise up. To do this, tilt it back on mang axis as you throw. This works best if you give it extra snap with the wrist too. This tilting technique is called adding mang to the disc. It makes your throws more accurate and the gliding effect makes it easier for other people to make catches. Next, the catching. Catching is another skill that is necessary when playing Ultimate Frisbee. We have here the types of the catching. The crocodile catch. The golden rule with catching is to use two hands whenever possible, unless you're just showing off. The crab catch. It can be done with one hand or two. Begin practicing with two hands, then when you get good at that, have a good at using just one hand. The goal here is to catch the disc between your thumb and fingers. If the disc is flying at the hand height, catch with the fingers on top of the disc and the thumb underneath. If the disc is flying low to the ground, you may find it easier to catch with the thumb on top of the disc and the fingers underneath. There are three most common types of catches include the one-handed dream catch, two-handed dream catch, and pancake catch. One-handed dream catch, using a single hand to catch the disc by its outer rim. This catch is commonly utilized when trying to catch a disc that is thrown very high, very low, or even behind the catcher. Two-handed dream catch. During this catch, the receiver is able to maintain position of the disc by using two hands to secure it. Lastly, the pancake. This is arguably considered to be the most secure way to catch the disc. This catch is base used for throws that are between the chin and wrist area. The receiver catches as the disc by placing two hands on the top and bottom flat surfaces of the disc.
So, welcome to chasing games. So, what are chasing games exactly? So, from the word chasing, so it is a type of game that you are going to chase the other players. So, there are two different kinds of players. So, there are the chasers and the taggers. So, or the taggers, and the one that was chased was the runner or the runner. So in this game, the mechanics of this game is just simply uh, chasing them in order for the players to tag the opposing team. And when all the other players are done tagging them, then it is time to switch and play the game until all the players are out. Okay, so Patintero is a native game in the Philippines that requires two teams with at least 5 players on each side. The object of the game is to block or harang the players from the opposing team from passing. So it is best practice for hand-eye coordination and strategic thinking. So find out what makes this game worth a while. So how to play Patintero? So first, you are going to draw a massive rectangle on the ground using chalk for clarity and divide it into smaller rectangles depending on the number of players. The patintero drawing involves 6 to 8 smaller rectangles. The players should form two teams with an equal number of players where one team plays defensive and the guards other team against passing the lines. The two teams make up the guards and the runners or the passers, and the guards assign a player to the lateral line in the middle of the rectangle and the other players on each horizontal line. The objective of the runners is to get across to the one end of the big rectangle and back without being touched or tagged by a guard. Now, during the game, the guard should ensure that they have both feet on the ground before tagging their opponent. Otherwise, it will not count. Once a runner is tagged, he or she gets out of the game. If a runner makes it across the big rectangle and back without being touched with the butterfly fingers, they earn a point. Once all the runners of a team has been tagged, it's game over. The teams been switch sides and the runners become the guards and vice versa. Rules of the games. So the rules of the games of Patintero apply across the board to all players. The equipment required for the game include chalk or paint, a score sheet, a whistle, and stopwatch. The player court should be a rectangle about 7.5 meters long and 5 meters wide divided into 6 equal rectangles. The rules of the Patintero in the Philippines are as follows. The game starts with a toss of a coin to decide the team that become the passer or runner. There is a time limit of 2 minutes for each team to score. And once the 2 minutes elapse, the two teams change sides and the guards become the passers and vice versa. The passers or runners are supposed to cross the lines from the starting point and back to earn a point. The line guards are positioned on the vertical line with one on the horizontal line of the grid, making sure that their feet are always on the line. The patintero objectives of the line guards include tagging the passers or runners with their powered or butterfly hands and blocking them from passing the lines. Once a guard tags any of the passers, the line guards assume the position of the passers. So here is a system scoring from the entry point. First line is 1 point, second line is 2 points, third line 2 points, fourth line 2 points. And from the exit point, fourth line 2 points, third line 3 points, second line 3 points, and first line 5 points. When you make it home, the duration of the game is 3 innings and each inning is divided into halves. The above patintero mechanics may slightly differ from one community to another, but the nature and style of the game are usually standard. So next type of chasing game is Catch the Dragon's Tail. So this game is a type of active game, and the group size need for this game is 20 or up. So the equipment used in this game is handkerchief for each dragon, cones for the boundaries. So the instruction of this game is number 1, split into 2 teams and have the teams get in a single file line. Larger groups can split into a team of 6 or higher. 2. Have each team put their arms around the person's waist in front of them and you are going to form a train. 3. The person in the rear puts an handkerchief in a back pocket or puts down their pants so that the handkerchief hanging out. 4. The object of the game is for each dragon to move as one unit towards another dragon. They will try to catch the opposing team's handkerchief. They must do this without breaking the chain of people. Only the leader of the dragon may catch the handkerchief. And 5. When they catch the dragon's handkerchief, they link up with the other dragons and continue to pursue other dragons while protecting their own tail. So hint of this game, instead of putting arms around the waist, hold hands, it makes it easier. Critic. Make rule that you can try to break other person's chain if you do your group is disqualified. Have a bigger area to play the game, and a good warm-up is to have each dragon try to capture its own tail. The next type of chasing game is Langit Lupa. So, Langit Lupa is a game that has a variation of habulan where players can be immune from being tagged as long as they stand on an elevated surface. Okay? So, etymology. Langit is the Filipino word for heaven and lupa is earth. The game's name describes how the chaser cannot reach players and are elevated from the earth. The game is for at least 3 players who will gather in a circle, and 1 player points at everyone in succession while chanting Langit, Lupa, Impyerno. Impyerno, saksak puso, tulan tugo, patay buhay, maalis ka na dyan. Heaven, earth, hell, 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 stab the heart, out comes blood, dead alive, and out you go. Pointing to the player next to the one he just pointed to it with every syllable of the chant. Whoever the chanter is pointing at when the chant ends is it. Then it chases the other players in an attempt to tag them. Whoever gets tagged will become the it, just like it habulan. However, players can climb or step into an elevated space such as a flight of stairs or top of a table or simply dangle from a jungle gym. Players who manage this are immune from being tagged. Different rules are applied to govern this limitation. One is to time a player's immunity. After a prearranged number of counts, the player has to calm down and be vulnerable again. Some groups impose a ruling that it must be moved away from the elevated players to give them a chance to run away. The game ends when the players are exhausted or are called home. So the theme song for Langit Lupa Impyerno is Langit Lupa Impyerno, Impyerno. Saksak puso, tulan dugo, patay buhay, alis ka na dyan. So with each syllable, that designated points to a player in a group, until finally, the rhythm finishes with the last syllable. The taya or the it is chosen. So 1, a mad scramble ensues as the remaining players search for elevated ground, which is langit or heaven. And 2, here's the it cannot go and the player cannot be touched. The unfortunate player who is caught and tagged standing on lupa or the level earth becomes the new it or the tag. 3, when the runner is tagging begins again.
Good day everyone, I am Jolie Anunciado and I'm going to introduce 3 chasing games. So the first is entitled Facts and Sheep. So this game, the group will choose one as the facts and the others are sheep. When the facts calls various times such as 3 o'clock, the sheep will take the number as a step toward the facts. But when the facts calls midnight, all the sheep are trying to run at the playing area without being tagged by the facts. The first tag by the facts becomes the facts. So the next game is entitled Captain Captain. This game is fun for young kids who is learning about colors. So one is choosing here as the captain. This game, you will ask the captain, 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 may we cross the ship? When the captain answers only if you wear, for example, color red, the captain answers, only if you wear color red. When you wear color red, you can run freely toward him without being tagged because you are wearing that color. But if you are not wearing that color, you may ask again the captain, may you cross the ship? But when the captain answers, only if you dare, you are going to run at the playing area without being tagged by the captain. Now the third game is entitled Join Hands. This game, one child cover their eyes and start counting 1 up to 10 while the others are hiding. When that number is reached, the child started looking at the others who are hiding. When they chase after someone and tag others, they are going to join hands and try to run and tag others. This game, you cannot chase others without being joining hands. If more than 3 are tagged, you can split smaller but not chase as singles. So the last untag is the winner.
Duck, Duck, Goose. A traditional children's game often first learned in preschool or kindergarten. The game may be later adapted on the playground for early elementary students. The object of this game is to walk in a circle, tapping on each player's head until one is finally chosen. The chosen player must then chase the picker to avoid becoming the next picker. So the terminology of this game, duck duck goose, are first it. It, sometimes referred to as the picker or the fox, will be the person saying duck duck goose and choosing who will be the goose, chasing him or her. The second terminology is goose, the one chasing the it. Mechanics of the game. First, sit in a circle. Get at least 4 people together and have everyone sit cross-legged on the floor or on the ground in a circle facing one another. Two of the advantages to the game are that it can be played indoors or outdoors, and you only need players, not equipment. So the size of the circle formed depends upon two factors. The first factor is the number of players, and the second one is how far apart each player's sits. The second one is decide who will be the it first. It, sometimes referred to as the picker or the fox, will be the person saying duck duck goose and choosing who will be the goose, chasing him or her. The third mechanics of this game is walk around the circle tapping heads. The person who is it will start walking around the circle and tapping the top of each player's head, saying either duck or goose. Typically, it taps and says duck several times before selecting someone and saying goose. The fourth and last mechanic. Choose a goose and run. At the time of his or her choosing, it will tap a player's head and say goose. It then takes off running around the circle and the goose jumps up and chases after it. The goose goal is to tag it before it is able to sit down in the goose spot. So there are basic skills in playing the duck, duck, goose. The basic skills of the duck, duck, goose are running, chasing, logic, and basic motor skills. The next game is the spiders and flies. Terminology: spiders. The player's goal is to work with their team to tag as many as the opposing members as possible. The team who are going to catch the flies. Flies. The opposite team whose goal is to avoid being tagged by the spiders team. The mechanics of the game Spiders and Flies. Step 1. Start by splitting everybody up into two groups. The groups should be equal. Otherwise, the game can end too fast or last too long. Step 2. As they move around, the spiders are going to be on their hands and their feet with the belly facing up. The flies are going to be on their hands and their feet with the belly facing down. Moving on, the spiders start chasing the flies around the game area, trying to tag them. And then, if a player has been tagged by the opposing team, they will stop moving and sit where they were tagged. The flies can try to save their team member, by tapping them 3 times and bringing them back to life. The game continues until all flies have been caught. The flies then become the next spiders and round 2 begins. The basic skills are reaction and running. Another chasing game is the dog catcher. For this game, kids pretend to be dogs and dog catcher. The terminology: chasing is moving quickly to catch up, tag, or overtake a moving object or person. Fleeing, moving quickly away from a pursuing object or person. Then the dog catcher, or the taggers. Then the mechanics of this game: choose 1 or 2 children serve as the dog catchers. The others pretend to be the dogs who escape from the area designated as the pound into the park, or playing area. Beanbags are scattered about the park as dog bone. An adult instructs the dogs to leave the pound and walk, run, or skip, and etc., while the dog catchers chase in the same fashion and try to tag them. Dogs who are tagged go back to the pound. Their canine paws can bring them dog bones as a main means of escape. After a set number of minutes, change rules until everyone has had a chance to serve as dog catchers. So the basic skills of the dog catcher game is locomotor skills. These skills used by an individual to move from one place to another includes running and walking.
Tag, known as a game that kids can play outside. The basic rules of tag: each team has 6 members and only 2 teams can play against each other. Each match consists of 16 chases and whoever wins the most chases wins the game. Tag must be made by the hands used only. If an athlete from either team steps out of the course during a chess, the opposing team wins the chess. If there is a tie, there is a sudden death chess off consisting of 20 seconds to determine the winner. The team with the longest evasion time wins. If there is no wins, the first round of the sudden death, the game continue until there is a winner. Next, tag consists of 10 terminology. First is the pinch point, areas of the quad where the evader has fewer options to escape. 2. Herding, used by the chaser to lure the evader into areas of the quad which are easier to tag them. Reverse herding, the evader draws the chaser into areas where are harder to tag. Idling, when the evader hides behind HQ obstacle to waste chaser time. Spike, a chess that lasts less than 5 seconds. Center control, technique by the chaser to take control of the center of the quad after an attempted tag. Tailing occurs when the chaser follows the same paths of the evader. Bunny hill, the chaser continuously run around the same obstacle a number of times to catch the evader. Quad, the area in which the game is played. Quack track, the evader goes sister to the mountain to the loading without touching the ground. Evasion ratio, the percentage of chases that end in a evasion. The mechanics of tag, there should be the first chaser. It depends on how you will choose it. Players have limited time to run away before the chasing. When chasing starts, there are no more excuses when the chaser already tagged you. Tagging between the recent and previous chaser is not allowed. If you want to quit the game, don't quit unless all players are already tagged, especially if you are the chaser. Use hands in tagging a player. When a player is tagged, he or she should help the chaser to chase other players, and if all players are already tagged, the original chaser will say a command to get down, and the last who get down, he or she is going to be the new chaser. Next is the hide and seek. It is the classic chasing and dodging the game that promotes spatial awareness and the ability to accelerate, change direction, and move into space. There is a basic rules of hide and seek. First is you need 3 or more players, or technically you could play with 2 but much more fun. Agree on the boundaries of the area in which players are not allowed to hide. Select one player to be the seeker. The seeker closes their eyes and counts to a 100, or use a time far to minutes while the other players hide. The seekers looks for the other players. The first found becomes the seekers in the next game. The last player found is the winner. Next is the stuck in the mud. It is the classic chasing and dodging the game that promotes spatial awareness and ability to accelerate range and change rudder direction and move into space. The basic rules of stuck in the mud: first, choose a player to be in. 2. The player who is in must run around and tag as many other players as they can. Who tag a player becomes stuck in the mud, they cannot move and must stand with their legs and arms apart. B. The only way to be freed is for a non-tag player to crawl through their legs. Players are safe while crawling on their legs and cannot be tagged. The game ends when all players have been tagged and are stuck in the mud. The mechanics of stuck in the mud. First, just like in the other games of tag, stuck in the mud requires a player to tag of the opposite team. Once you tag a player, they must stand still with their legs slightly apart as they are stuck in the mud. To free a player from being stuck in the mud, the player who stuck needs to have a player from their team crawl through their legs, neither rejoin the game. The taggers' goals to tag the other team so all members are stuck in the mud before the time limit expires. And lastly, the other team wins the round if they are able to survive all players being stuck in the mud when the time expired.